I'm here today to share with you how to use the findings from the classroom assessment tool. So what I'm going to do in my presentation with you today is to help you to know how to take the information that was gathered during your observation and recorded on that classroom assessment tool, how to summarize the results, then prioritize some areas of need that come out of those results, and then to prepare to communicate that effectively with the classroom teacher you're supporting. So last ECHO session, we got information on how to actually administer the classroom assessment tool. So if you did not have a chance to participate in that session, suggest that you view the didactic recording and make sure that you're fully equipped to use that classroom assessment tool effectively, prepare well, and know how to score those items and how to set yourself up for the best possible data collection that you can get. So in thinking forward about how to use those data, I'm wondering if you've had a chance to look at the classroom assessment tool, if you've had a chance to actually use the assessment tool with someone. So if you haven't, here's some links so that you could get that tool and become more familiar with it in the future. But for today, I'm going to share with you a scenario, and that will allow us to demonstrate how to use results from that tool. So this scenario involves Mrs. Jones, and she's a new teacher at Hope Memorial Elementary School. And this school uses an MTSS framework, and it is a positive behavior interventions and supports school. It has school-wide expectations, be responsible, be respectful, and be safe. And those are school-wide. They also, Ms. Jones was also in her first year of teaching, so that's an important aspect of the scenario here. She had a class of 19 students, 5 of which had some identified learning challenges, and they were pretty diverse in background and ethnicity. She had contacted the guidance counselor because she was continuing to have some behavior problems in her classroom that she was not able to address on her own. And she had a nice relationship with the guidance counselor and felt comfortable contacting her for support. So Mrs. Herman was the guidance counselor at the school, and she, as well as the assistant principal, special education teacher, and one mentor teacher, had all attended a training on the classroom consultation guide. And that's a comprehensive approach using problem solving to addressing concerns in the classroom. And the classroom assessment tool is the primary assessment measure in that guide. And so Ms. Herman was ready and equipped to provide some support to Ms. Jones. And in talking through when Ms. Jones had the most concerns during the day, when the most challenging behaviors were happening, so that they could identify the best time for the observation, they decided it was primarily during her reading group, and generally on the days when they did a long, large group instruction, and also during transition times before and after. So they agreed on a 90-minute observation period, which was longer than we would normally get to have, but it was necessary in order to see the transitions on both sides of the large group reading instruction. So now you know a little bit about Ms. Jones and the school that she was in. You know a little bit about when the observation took place. So the classroom assessment tool was completed by Ms. Herman, and now our first step is to summarize the results. So to remain consistent with what went on in the previous ECHO, we're going to focus just on that one section of the classroom assessment tool, classroom behavior systems. it's a large tool. It covers many aspects going on within the classroom, but for the time constraints today and demonstrating how to use this information, I'm just going to focus on that one piece of the CAT. So there, as I said, there are several sections of the CAT. And the classroom behavior system section has then 3 components within it. Of those 3 components, define and teach behavior, reward system, and consequence system, which of these 3 do you think typically have been found to be the weakest in our review of many, many classroom assessments tools that have been completed? And if you guessed define and teach behavior, you would be right. So usually reward system is the highest, and define and teach behavior is the lowest. So focusing in on that classroom behavior system, this is the results that you're able to obtain if you use the Excel form in that link that we provided a few slides ago. There is an Excel form where you enter your scores for each of the items in the classroom assessment tool, and then it will automatically provide both the table that you see here on the left and the pie chart that you see on the right. So those are automatically summarized for you. In the app that's part of the Florida PBIS website that you can use for free, it will also provide these types of summaries for you. So in terms of a summary, you get a summary. But which of these types of ways of looking at data do you find preferable? So do you like the table format better? Do you like a pie chart format better? Or do you find yourself wanting to go back and look at the specific items? Well, if you like to look at specific items, here they are. I have taken an additional step and put a little icon next to each of the scores. So the scores on the CAT are in place, somewhat in place, or not in place. And I have put a little icon. So an X for not in place, a little blue flower, room for growth for the somewhat in place, and then a green check for in place. And it allows me to just kind of look at each of the 3 sections of the classroom behavior systems section and kind of get a sense of what's happening overall pretty quickly, kind of like you did with the pie chart. But it allows me then to look specifically over at the individual items. So going back to our summary, as I said, both the Excel form and the application in the PBIS Florida website will provide a chart or a graph format for you summarizing, but you'll still need to kind of interpret that information for yourself. So how would you summarize in one statement or one sentence what's going on in Ms. Jones' class for her classroom behavior systems based on what's presented here? So you might say that she only has a fourth of what should be in place. You might say she's got most things are not in place. So there are a lot of ways that you could summarize what you see here. There's no one right way to do it. But the idea is to begin to generate kind of your impression or a summary statement regarding what's going on with the classroom behavior system. So now we have an idea of what's going on across the areas of the CAT. Now imagine you'd be doing the whole assessment tool, not just one section. And then you're going to prioritize the areas of need. So in order to do that, you might again want to look back at the specific items. So the broad summaries might help you focus in on a particular section, and then looking at the specific items might help you to prioritize. So sometimes looking at both the higher level or the broad level and then the more specific level will help you to focus in. So which of these three areas, if you were going to pick define and teach, reward, or classroom system, which of these three systems do you think you would start working with Ms. Jones first? Well, if you selected define and teach behavior, that is in fact what Ms. Herman prioritized. So since she prioritized that section of the classroom systems, she also wanted to go back through each of the items within that section and make sure that she reviewed from her notes from the observation and or discussion, because the red items require discussion with the teacher, so that she remembered the details, so that that could be useful in both understanding kind of where things are going well, where things are falling short, and how to develop a good plan. So this is an example. These are the items and the notes from Ms. Herman. So for this item, which is a complex item around school-wide expectations, classroom rules, routines, and procedures, having them defined, clearly defined, and positively stated and posted. So you can see that Ms. Jones had school-wide expectations posted, but they were outside of her classroom in the hallway. So they weren't in the classroom. That Ms. Jones had some class-wide rules, but they were not posted. They were in a notebook on her desk. They were nicely, positively worded, and clearly, I think, a nice set of rules, but they weren't evident when she was observing in the classroom. And of the students that she interviewed, only a few of the students could identify school-wide or the classroom rules. So there's definitely some problems within this item. This particular item is a difficult item to get in place score for, and that's primarily because there are so many elements to being able to say it's in place. So you have to have the school-wide and the classroom rules and the routines and procedures, and they have to be defined, and they have to be positive, and they have to be posted. So a lot of criteria here for a single item. So it's difficult to get this particular item in place. So this is a red item. Red items require talking with the teacher, not ones that you would necessarily be able to observe and see. This one had room to grow. So she had a flow chart in her room that the discipline team had created. This is the school-wide discipline team. And it mapped out a process for handling problem behavior. So when you see a challenging behavior, then what do? Is it teacher managed? Is it office managed? And then that particular chart did have list the behaviors that are teacher managed and office managed, but Ms. Jones could not really describe or define those behaviors, and didn't know where she would look or get more information about that. So that one got an in-place rating. And I'm going to show you just a little example if you're not familiar with what that flow chart might look like. This is an example from an elementary school. So you can see how it goes. The behavior, you ask the question. If it's a yes, you go this direction. If it's a no, you go that direction. And then the arrow down shows how you might decide if it's office managed or classroom managed. So it lists the behaviors there, but it doesn't define what those are. For instance, on the classroom managed, it says classroom disruption, and that particular item might need some additional definition in order for us to mutually agree that a set of behaviors is indeed a classroom disruption. Okay, define and teach behavior. This is item number 19. Expectations, routines, and rules are not just posted and exist, but that they're taught and practiced. So this is a difficult one to actually observe in a classroom because we don't necessarily do this all day long. So since Ms. Jones didn't display teaching or orchestrating any practice during the observation period, Ms. Herman had asked her about teaching. When do you do teaching? Have you taught? And Ms. Jones indicated that, yeah, she taught the expectations at the beginning of the school year, but that she hadn't really addressed that since then, and that she didn't have any identified procedures, such as turning in homework or going to the restroom. And the final item in this section was classroom behavior data are regularly collected or analyzed. Ms. Jones, in the conversation after the observation, indicated that she wasn't sure about how to even collect classroom behavior data, but that she would be interested in learning more about that if it would help her to address the problems going on in her classroom. Okay, so we've got a really nice idea, an understanding about the area that we're prioritizing, and now we need to prepare to communicate this back effectively with the teacher. So we're going to start with strengths. As always, when you're providing feedback to someone, we want to start with a positive. Everyone in every situation has a strength. So think now about what you know about Ms. Jones and what strengths could be identified to build on. So some of those were that she was accepting of help. That's a very big strength to build on, because if a teacher is not interested in receiving feedback or accepting help, then that's a big barrier to overcome in order to improve or change behavior. What else about Ms. Jones? So she had a nice set of rules. She just hadn't really employed the teaching and the posting and the way to keep that top of mind and engage that into practice with her students. So she had that. So these are some of the things that you want to do at the beginning. Is identify things that are going well, things that that can be built upon for future strengthening of the program. So then once you start with strengths, we know now what our identified priority area is going to be. So identify or restate your priority area. And then you're going to develop what I think of as like the why. Why have I selected that area as a priority area? It's the rationale for why you think that the teacher should address that area first rather than another. You can't address all concerns at the same time. So what's the rationale for this one over a different one? And then coming up with a proposed set of actions. So some things that you would do to make change based on that priority and rationale. And again, these are going to be proposed changes. So these are what Ms. Herman came up with. This was her rationale for prioritizing the define and teach behavior section of the classroom behavior systems part of the CAT. So first of all, a reward system, she decided not to focus on the reward system because the purpose of the reward system within a PBIS framework is to reinforce the desired behaviors. So if she hasn't defined, taught, and defined and taught those behaviors, reinforcing them won't work. So she would be reinforcing other random behaviors. And when you tie your reinforcement to a set of clearly defined and stated behaviors that you're teaching, then the power of the reinforcement in the reward system really can be enhanced. And then the prevention of problem behaviors through consequences. Well, we know that generally consequence-based behavior change is not going to be where you want to start. First of all, it's not a very pleasant thing to engage in. But second, if you are doing your good teaching, defining what the expectations are and teaching them, and using an effective reinforcement system to help to reinforce and shape those behaviors, then hopefully there'll be much fewer of the problem behaviors to have to respond with some consequences or how you respond to those behaviors. So we want to start with the defining and teaching. So that's our rationale. There may be some other explanations or purposes for selecting that section, and you can think about those. Then the action items. So here again, this is a list of things that you might start with as you discuss with the teacher. You've defined the area, you've explained why you think this is the particular area to prioritize, and then here are a set of actions that could be taken. And perhaps you'd want to start with this action and then maybe follow up with these other actions. This is by no means you're going in with a list of things that you expect that this is the list that the teacher will engage in. It's a starter list for discussion. Based on what we discovered in the assessment, here are some things that I would recommend. What do you think? What do you think is feasible for you to do? What things do you think would you need support with? What kinds of support do you need in order to make those actions happen? And those are the kinds of discussions that you're going to be having. But to at least have a proposed list of some actions to go into that discussion with the teacher is a good idea. So once you've got that, another thing that you'll want to be equipped with prior to going in and working with your teacher is knowing where you're going to go to access resources, and then delivering or helping to establish a plan of delivery and carrying out those actions. So really specific, who's going to do what when, what resources are needed, who needs to help support, and then who's going to follow up and make sure that those tasks got done, or that somebody didn't need a level of support that wasn't anticipated, and so on. So the resources that are linked here, again, will help you access both the classroom assessment tool, the classroom consultation guide, a lot of other resources that can be tied to each of the categories of domain for the classroom assessment tool. So I hope that this review of how to use the information the classroom assessment tool is useful to you, and I hope that you enjoy the next ECHO series as well.